Please do tag me in any tweets about how wonderful this session is and how wonderful I am, which would be great. And ask me any questions, because we might run out of time at the end. And keep tagging at NTLD Books throughout the day. A bit about me before we start. I've been teaching performing arts for 11 years. I've been head of department, I've been head of year 7, I've been head of house, and most recently, my current job is the head of autism resource at a mainstream school in Berkshire. I say Berkshire, it's Berkshire, isn't it? From September, I'll be deputy head teacher of an alternative provision centre in Oxfordshire. So it's a really big challenge for me that is coming up. I'm really excited about getting started. So, diversity, inclusion, and leading with authenticity. So, why is this important? Why is diversity in education and inclusion in education important? And when I start to consider this in my school and start to think about how I can drive change, I always start with the why. Why are we doing this? And just bear with me, I think we've got some more people waiting. There we go, we should be in. So when I'm considering how I can drive change in my school, I always start with the why. But why would we bother with diversity and inclusion? Why would we bother with diverse stuff? Teachers have already got enough on their plates, haven't they, surely? Why do they have to rewrite their schemes of learning to include more, let's say, diverse stuff? Now, questions are being asked about how we can improve the curriculum in the UK so that it is more diverse and inclusive and better reflects the society that we live in. And even though students aren't examined or ever tested on this, we're doing this because students need to be exposed to a diverse curriculum that explores different perspectives, amplifies voices, and shows the kids that whatever they're feeling, it's okay to be who you are and without judgment. And that's what I needed when I was at school, to feel that I was seen and that what I was feeling was acknowledged and that it was okay. If our curriculum continues to skim over or gloss over colonialism or racism, or eliminates the contribution of Black and brown people or LGBT people or any other marginalised group, we're going to miss the chance to educate our students about how they fit into the world and how they can connect to one another and respect one another. Now, we know that schools decide the kind of society and the kind of world that we want to live in. Schools transform children into citizens of the world. If we aren't getting the treatment of LGBT people or BAME people or any marginalised group of students right in education and in schools, we won't be getting it right in society. Now, we know that not everybody is going to have this as a priority. Not everybody is going to have diversity and inclusion at the top of their list, but we've got to make it everybody's priority if it isn't already. Now, we've all got those colleagues who are resistant to change and who are stuck in their ways, and some that only respond to the threat of Ofsted. Now, one of my colleagues and friends, David Lowbridge Ellis, who's deputy head teacher at Barbeacon School in Birmingham, shared this slide that I'm sharing with you at LGBT Ed. And these are some kind of key points from Ofsted, from the inspection guidance, that we can use to get some of those more resistant colleagues on board, because we can't change the world all by ourselves. And we need everybody to be on board for this to be a priority. So I'm just going to give you kind of a minute to have a look at those things that are on there that you might be able to make reference to when you're trying to get some of those more resistant ones on board. Yes, we have a moral duty to our students to present a curriculum that is diverse and reflects themselves back at them, but also, you know, sometimes you have to say, well, actually, Ofsted do want us to do this. We don't want to narrow our curriculum, and we need to be reflective of the society that we live in. I know that slide is quite busy, so you will have a chance to reflect on this later on when I send it out to you. Now, a little bit about myself, and my kind of journey. Until about 4 years ago, I'd done very little work on diversity and inclusion in schools. I'd delivered one LGBT History Month assembly, which was a start, but I knew that wasn't enough. I knew it. Even though I was out at school and I was open about my life with my colleagues and my students, I wasn't ready to lead on inclusion for the benefit of LGBT students in my community. And it's clear that when you look at me, you can see quite clearly that I'm mixed race. My dad's from the Caribbean, my mum's from the UK, but I would never talk about race at school. I've always been quite anxious about how I'm going to be perceived. I was worried that if I shine a light on race issues, LGBT issues, or be more open and talk about race or LGBT issues, I was worried that my colleagues are just going to roll their eyes and be like, well, why do we really need to do this? We've got, more pressing things, let's say, to be concerned with. Now, some of that was my own self-doubt. Why would I want to put myself out there to be rejected, criticised, judged, ridiculed? So I thought back to my time at secondary school and the types of people, different types of people, well, they weren't that different really, that taught me in that Birmingham comprehensive school. There were lots and lots of cis, white, straight presenting men and women. In my whole school career, I saw one black teacher. I can't even remember thinking or considering in my head that a teacher might be LGBT. I vaguely remember doing the slave trade in year 7. I had no idea what Windrush was. And that kind of, for me, highlighted in my own mind where my gaps and my lack of knowledge and not seeing myself back kind of stayed with me until, quite recently in my teaching career. So, in the 90s, when I was at school, Section 28 of the Local Government Act prohibited the promotion of homosexuality by authorities, and this had been in place since 1988. I never saw any positive messages about LGBT people, and LGBT-phobic language was not challenged at all at my school. Section 28 also meant that LGBT teachers felt pressure to stay silent on their own identity and hide who they were. Lots of people my age, and especially those who are teachers, are still living with that kind of hangover from Section 28. I knew I didn't feel the same when my friends, girls, who would talk about boys that they fancied. But I thought one day, maybe I would feel the same as everybody else. I woke up maybe thinking, oh, maybe I will fancy that boy in that class or whatever. And it kind of never happened. Looking back, maybe if I'd have had some information about same-sex relationships or there being an out lesbian teacher at school, I might not have felt so lost for such a long time. I think that kind of really resonates with me about why we are trying to diversify the curriculum and be role models for our students in school, because not seeing yourself reflected back at school or in life, in the media, can be so limiting, and it impacts on how you see yourself in the world. You feel invisible, you don't know where you fit in. So the work I do on diversity and inclusion is for me in kind of a way. It's for the person I was when I was at school, and for others like me, or in marginalised groups who don't see themselves. I want to be a visible role model in my school because I might not have known it then, but that's what I needed. But I had no idea where to start. I'm just going to let a few more people in, bear with me. So, I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what to do outside of an LGBT history or a Black History Month assembly. What else can I do? I had no idea. I had to educate myself, obviously, and look at other people's practices in other schools, go to courses, listen to people, listen to podcasts, have conversations. But what else can you do? So I'm just going to pop on this article from Benny so you can have a little muse on while I am talking. First of all, what you need to do is get out there in your schools and find out what is happening. You can do that through lots of different ways. Anonymous surveys, if you've got an open door policy, drop into lessons, ask the heads of curriculum, heads of departments to share examples of diversity in their subjects, have conversations with other teachers. Is it in PSHE? Is it in special events? Is it nowhere? You need to find out. If you care about this, you can't be afraid to ask those questions, and then you'll know where to start. Now, Benny Cara is a colleague of mine, and she has written extensively and spoken about how schools can improve their curriculum so that they are more diverse. I've highlighted a few provocations from her article in Schools Week from June. I just wanted to really draw your attention to a quote from her that I think is particularly powerful. An honest review means acknowledging where our curriculum has failed all students, BAME or otherwise. The result might be that your school delivers a curriculum that usualises and commemorates diversity so that more of our students understand that the murder of a black person is not a joke, but an affront to our common culture and decency. I think that kind of really highlights why we're doing this, why it's important to be a visible role model, lead by example, but also to have schools' curriculums that reflect the society that we live in. So it's quite clear why we're doing this, and that helps us to figure out what should be included in our diverse curriculum. But again, where are you going to start? I started in my subject area first. I'm a performing arts teacher. I've taught dance and drama and musical theatre for the last 11 years, which you think it was quite diverse. Musical theatre, dance, drama reflects the society that we live in. But sometimes all we keep teaching is blood brothers. How diverse is that? I love it, but is it diverse? So I started exploring LGBT plays and themes in lessons, and then I felt a renewed passion for my subject because I was exploring different work with the students. Still teach, some of the, all the test material, all the exam material, but just have a look. Where else can you bring a different perspective in? Where else can you amplify a voice? I began an initiative in 2019 in my school to highlight where diversity is, and I had the support of SLT. I asked teachers to amplify diversity in their subject areas under the moniker of celebrating diversity at Trinity School. So, computer science highlighted Alan Turing. Science highlighted the first black female astronaut to travel to space, Mae Jemison. We have Alvin Ailey in dance. We have the Windrush generation and then Scandal in citizenship. Now, this is a step in the right direction. Of course, it is, it's amplifying, it's highlighting, but there's more that we can do. We can do better than that. So the development of the curriculum continues, and including usualising the experiences of marginalised people and actualising by planning lessons around aspects of LGBTQ+, BAME or any other marginalised group. Now, I've got some examples coming up from my colleague David Lowbridge-Ellis from LGBT Ed. So these ones are LGBT specific, just to kind of give a flavour of what the difference is between that usualising and actualising. Now, there have been calls that I've been on and training that I've been on before where people will say, like in maths or in science, how do we bring in diversity that's not just, this is a black scientist, this person was gay. How can we usualise? What examples can we give? And I think this one, the maths example here, is a really good example of usualising. Describing a couple, two men picking up their daughter, usualising, just to kind of drop it in there, not shoehorning it in, You're just usualising, you're bringing it up in the kind of common conversation that you might have. Now, this just gives us a flavour of what usualising and actualising looks like in practice in lessons. You will have this PowerPoint sent out to you, okay? So I'm going to move on because I would like to answer some of your questions if I can figure out how to do that through Zoom. So I will move on to the next slide. Now, how can you be an inspiring leader if you are holding yourself back? The work on the curriculum continues, but diversity and inclusion includes the staff as well. It means showing up authentically, leading with humility, and remembering that we're all vulnerable and imperfect individuals, just doing the best that we can every single day. It's about having the courage to take risks, speak up, ask for help, and connect with others in a genuine way through allowing ourselves to be seen. This is my old staff picture. It's actually my staff picture for my current job. And you could see, I don't know actually if you could actually work it out from the picture, but I'm actually wearing a wig in that picture to cover my afro. I've got afro hair, and it's huge, it's massive. I'd had a really bad experience in my previous job where I was told by the head teacher that my hair was unprofessional and that it was distracting. So I eventually got out of that job and got into Trinity, which is a wonderful school, very privileged to work there. I love it. But I didn't want to risk it. I didn't want to risk that again. So for my interview, I wore a wig. And then for the first few weeks, I continued to wear a wig because I didn't want to risk it. It was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for me because it was, it was quite itchy, moving about and all that kind of thing. I'm not an expert at putting wigs on, but I was uncomfortable because I wasn't being authentic. I was holding myself back. I was masking myself. I was covering. I didn't want to put myself out there, but my actions didn't align with the message that I was trying to get across to the students, to the staff, to be themselves in our school without judgment. So I took what for me felt like a big risk. One day I didn't wear the wig to school, and you know what? No one even noticed, apart from the receptionist who told me my hair looked nice. My current school is a safe environment for people to be themselves without fear, and as part of the leadership team, I have got a responsibility to others, not only the students, to the staff, to my colleagues, to model that. And to succeed in leadership and build teams, you've got to be willing to bring your whole self to work and to the work that you do. Leading with authenticity allows you to impact the culture of your school. This will unlock greater creativity, develop connections, and improve performance. We know people perform better when they can be themselves. And for me, at that time, it was just not going in with that wig because I was more comfortable, more confident. I would be myself. Everybody benefits, the staff and the young people in our schools. And to me, being authentic and being willing to bring your whole self to the workplace is more about getting to a place where you have the freedom to be authentic and vulnerable, and also the freedom to choose what you reveal about yourself. I'm not saying that, if you are LGBT, you have to stand up in assembly and do a singing and dancing jazz hands presentation about, your life. You don't have to do that. You can, of course, do that if you feel comfortable and confident. It's more about having those casual conversations with students, with your colleagues, so that everybody is a little bit maybe more vulnerable, more willing to share. It brings the team together. You should only reveal what you want to reveal about yourself, but you should feel comfortable in the place that you work to do that. I do realise that not everybody's like me, not everybody's out loud, and, excited all the time, and that's okay. But share what you feel you can, so that you can make those connections at school. And that's really important for building teams and getting change to happen. So I will continue to lead in a way that models bringing your whole authentic self to work. And by showing the courage to do this, I will inspire my colleagues and young people in our school to show up, to speak out, to disrupt what's going on, and to be themselves. Now, you can connect with me on Twitter. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to hearing how you take what you've heard from me and drive it forward in your school. So please reach out and tell me what you are doing. We have got a little bit of time. So if you would like to ask me a question, let's see how we're going to do this. Bear with me. Do I have a chat function? I'm not sure. Let me just open up my screen so I can see more people. If you do want to say something or ask me a question, I can unmute you if you have anything to ask. Or you can wave at me. Oh, I think I've got a chat. Have I got a chat here? Sorry, someone's asked me a question. I can't find it. Does anybody have a question? Give me a wave if you've got a question or any comments. Oh, hello, hang on.
Hi there. I just wondered what sort of feedback you've had from children at the school.
Sorry?
What sort of feedback, what kind of reaction, and how do they sort of respond to what you're doing?
So when I first started the LGBT rainbow group at my school, the students were really quite keen to tell the head teacher how they felt about the Rainbow Club. So we gave it a couple of weeks. I said, well, what do you want to say to our head teacher? And we kind of went through that, figured out what our kind of cases, our kind of point that we wanted to make. And when the head teacher came down, she sat and she listened, and the children, the students were all quite, they're all grateful of just having that space and that time to connect with one another in that kind of safe space. Also, they loved the fact that their teachers were coming down and just sitting and listening, drinking their coffee, having a cake with them and just listening. The response from the students, you know, if you think about when you're diversifying the curriculum, you're utilizing, you're actualizing, it's not noticeable. It's kind of discreet in that sense until you have things like, you know, a rainbow group, or, you know, you might do a celebration assembly, whatever. That is when I get students coming to me and saying, wow, miss, that was really brave, which I think is quite an interesting word to use. That's really brave of you to share that with me. And for me, it's not brave, it's what I have to do for them and for myself. So the feedback from the students has been good. Yes, there are incidences in schools where, in my school, you know, where homophobic language has been used, but the response from the students that they're challenging it themselves, and also the staff, kind of makes it all worth it, to show that it's not just me flying the rainbow flag or, you know, talking about race. It's more than me, and our team come together.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. I know I've got a question in the chat, bear with me, just trying to find it. Does anybody else have a question? If you want to put your camera on and wave at me. No? I hope you're all there. It just looks like names on screens. No one's actually there. Everyone's making their breakfast. Okay then, I will send out this presentation to you. Please do connect with me on Twitter. I look forward to hearing what you're all up to, and if you want my advice, my help, or just want to connect because you think I'm really funny and you just want to be my mate, that's also okay. So if you, I'll send this presentation out. It is being recorded. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.